The stars outside the cruiser's window looked cold and distant, but Lyra Cal didn't notice them anymore. She had seen too many stars, too many worlds, and too many people begging for their lives. None of it mattered now. Not after what happened on Carthus Station. The mission was supposed to be simple. Go in, eliminate the target, and disappear. She had done it 100 times before. But this time the target wasn't just a target. He was bait, a trap, set for her. They wanted her gone. The syndicate, the same people who trained her, gave her everything, turned her into what she was. They had betrayed her. After years of loyal service, after all the lives she had taken for them, they decided she was too dangerous, too expensive to keep, and so they set her up. She barely escaped the station alive. Bloodied, wounded, and hunted by their best mercenaries, Lyra hijacked a small stealth cruiser and ran. She didn't care where it was going, as long as it was away from syndicate space, away from everyone, but she was bleeding. A wound near her ribs was getting worse. Her vision blurred and her hands trembled as she flew the ship manually. The autopilot was broken. Everything was damaged. She wasn't going to make it much farther. That's when her ship's scanners picked up an isolated blue planet near the edge of a quiet system. Not on any major trade routes, barely registered in the galactic maps. The kind of place no bounty hunter would think to search first. Earth. She didn't know anything about it. Just that it was small, peaceful, and probably didn't even have space travel yet. Perfect. She broke through the atmosphere like a falling star, the ship shaking violently. Alarms screamed. Flames covered the cockpit windows. She passed out right before the crash. Eli Hayes was fixing the roof of his cabin when he saw it. A flash of fire across the morning sky, brighter than any meteor. It moved too smoothly, too controlled. Then it vanished into the forest with a loud, distant crash. He stood still for a moment. Birds flew from the trees. The forest went quiet. Most people would have called the police or at least someone in town. But Eli hadn't talked to anyone in months. He lived alone out by the lake, surrounded by woods and silence. That was how he liked it. Still, curiosity got the better of him. He grabbed his jacket and backpack, slipped a pistol into the side pocket, just in case, and headed toward the smoke. The crash site was half a mile from his cabin. Trees were burned black and metal pieces were scattered all around. The ship was small, sleek, and badly damaged. Its nose was buried in the dirt and one wing was missing. Then he saw her, a woman, unconscious, slumped in the open hatch. Blood stained her black armor. A deep cut on her side was bleeding heavily. She was barely breathing. Eli's first instinct was to walk away. She could be dangerous. She looked like a soldier, or worse. There were weapons strapped to her belt. She was not from Earth. That much was obvious, but he didn't leave. He remembered another battlefield. Years ago, on a distant planet during his time as a medic in the Interstellar Peace Corps, a young soldier bleeding out under alien fire. He had saved her then, just like this. So Eli did what he had always done. He saved her. Back in his cabin, Lyra lay unconscious on his old couch. Eli had removed the armor carefully, stitched her wounds, and cleaned her up. He didn't know what kind of species she was, but her blood was red, and her body was mostly human. She even looked human, except for a few faint markings on her skin and the strange glow in her veins. For 2 days, she didn't wake. Eli kept her stable, changed her bandages, and watched over her. He didn't ask himself why. He already knew. He had seen too much death. Saving someone, anyone, was still something he could do. On the 3rd day, she opened her eyes, bright, sharp, and full of confusion. She sat up fast, ready to fight, but her body failed her. She collapsed back, groaning in pain. "You're safe," Eli said calmly, holding up his hands. "I found you after your crash. You were hurt." She stared at him, breathing hard. Her eyes scanned the room, the door, the windows. She was calculating. Always alert, always prepared. "I'm not your enemy," he added. "Just a guy living in the woods. You don't need to hurt me." Her eyes narrowed. "Where am I?" "Earth," he replied. "You're on Earth." Lyra blinked. Earth, a planet with no galactic power. A backwater rock. Somehow she had made it. She leaned back slowly, still watching him. She didn't trust him, not yet. But she was alive, and for now that was enough. Eli stayed calm as the strange woman watched him like a hawk. Her eyes didn't miss a single movement. She had the look of someone who had been fighting her whole life, someone who didn't know how to rest. She didn't say much after asking about the planet. She just leaned back on the couch, silent and tense. Her body was weak, but her mind was sharp. She was ready to fight again the moment her strength returned. Eli didn't ask questions. He didn't ask her name or where she came from. He knew she wouldn't answer. Instead, he made her tea, placed it on the table beside her, and went back to chopping firewood outside. That's how he handled things, quietly, patiently. By evening, she tried to stand. Eli saw her through the window, gripping the wall as she pulled herself up. Her legs shook and pain showed on her face, but she didn't cry out. She refused to look weak. Eli came inside quickly. "You're not ready," he said. She ignored him, walking slowly toward the door. "I need to leave," she muttered. "Leave and go where?" He asked. "You crashed here. There's nothing but forest for miles. No cities, no spaceports. No help." She didn't answer. "I'm not stopping you," Eli added. "But if you go out there, you'll bleed to death by nightfall, and the cold will finish you off." She looked at him for a long time. Her eyes studied his face like she was trying to read something in it. Finally, she sat back down. Her pride was wounded more than her body. "You're not from here, are you?" Eli said, sitting down across from her. She hesitated. "No," he nodded. "Didn't think so." She looked around the cabin. It was small but neat. A wood stove warmed the room, and shelves filled with books lined one wall. There were photos, too. A woman and a child. Smiling faces. A family that wasn't here anymore. This place, it's peaceful, she said quietly. Eli followed her gaze but didn't speak for a moment. Then he said, "It used to be." She noticed the sadness in his voice, and for a second she let her guard down. "I'm Lyra," she said. Eli looked at her with mild surprise. "Nice to meet you, Lyra. I'm Eli." That was the beginning. Over the next few days, Lyra slowly recovered. She still didn't trust Eli completely, but she allowed him to help her. She let him change her bandages, cook meals, and even teach her how to play a simple card game. She didn't know why she stayed. Maybe it was because she had nowhere else to go. Or maybe it was something else, something she didn't want to admit. She began to notice things about Eli. How quiet he was, but also how kind. He didn't ask about her past. He didn't judge her. He didn't treat her like a threat, even though he clearly knew she could be one. He treated her like a person. One night they sat by the fire in silence. The rain tapped gently on the windows. Lyra stared into the flames, lost in thought. "Why are you here, Eli?" she asked suddenly. He looked at her. "I used to be a medic, served in the Peace Corps, helped during conflicts on other planets. But things went wrong during one mission. I lost my family. After that, I couldn't stay out there. So I came home, built this place, needed quiet." Lyra nodded slowly. She didn't say she understood, but she did. After a pause, she said, "They tried to kill me. The people I worked for left me to die. I was the best at what I did, and they still threw me away. What did you do?" She looked at him, eyes sharp again. "Things I'm not proud of." He didn't push for more. He just said, "You don't have to be that person here." She looked away. In the days that followed, Lyra began to change, not just physically, but inside too. She helped Eli with small tasks around the cabin. She learned how to chop wood, how to cook simple meals, even how to fish. She struggled with these things at first. They were so different from her old life, so simple yet so real. For the first time in years, she wasn't hiding in shadows or hunting targets. She wasn't watching her back every second. She was living. Sometimes she watched the lake. She had never stopped to admire nature before. It felt strange. It felt wrong, but also peaceful. Eli didn't treat her like a weapon. He didn't fear her. And slowly, Lyra started to feel something she hadn't felt in a long time. Safe. But the galaxy wasn't done with her yet. Far above Earth, in the cold black of space, a signal pulsed. A beacon from the remains of her ship, and something was listening. Days passed quietly in the forest cabin. The sun rose and set with peace, and the world outside seemed still, untouched by the chaos of the galaxy. For the first time in years, Lyra was not running, not fighting, and not looking over her shoulder every second. It was strange. Uncomfortable even. But slowly her body and mind began to rest. Eli never asked for more than she was willing to share. He spoke little, but when he did, his words were honest. He treated Lyra like a guest, not a threat. That confused her at first. She had spent years in a galaxy where kindness usually hid something sharp underneath. But Eli didn't want anything from her. He just helped. Lyra watched him work, chopping wood, fixing tools, checking fishing lines by the lake. He moved with quiet skill, always calm, always in control. She began helping where she could, though her wounds still slowed her down. Even small things, carrying firewood, cleaning dishes, felt new. Not because she hadn't done them before, but because she was doing them without fear. One morning, as they ate a simple breakfast of eggs and bread, Lyra finally asked, "Why didn't you turn me in?" Eli looked at her across the table. "Who would I even turn you into?" he said with a small smile. "There's no government out here. No ships, no soldiers, just trees and sky. You don't know who I am." "I know enough." Lyra studied him. "I'm dangerous, Eli. People are looking for me. If they find out you helped me, then they'll have to deal with me too," he said, his voice calm but firm. She didn't answer. She didn't need to. Something about the way he said it made her believe it. That same night, Lyra couldn't sleep. She walked outside, standing under the stars. The forest was quiet, the moonlight touching the lake like silver paint. She looked up. Somewhere out there, someone was hunting her. She could feel it, and she was right. Far above the earth, a ship drifted silently. Black and sharp like a knife, it hovered just outside the planet's range of satellites. Inside the ship stood a tall figure in silver armor. His name was Vorak. He had once fought beside Lyra on missions long before her betrayal. Now he was hired to hunt her down. A small flashing screen showed a map of Earth zooming into a forest near a lake. The signal from Lyra's wrecked ship had been weak, but it was enough. She was here. And Vorak always finished his hunts. Back on Earth, Lyra began to sense a change. Birds were too quiet. The air felt heavier. She started noticing patterns, small signs that someone was scanning the area. Faint energy waves, disrupted frequencies. Someone was close, she told Eli. He didn't seem surprised. "I figured something like this would happen eventually," he said, tightening a strap on his old military backpack. "You knew they'd come?" "Didn't know when. Just knew someone would be stupid enough to follow you here." Lyra almost smiled. "You're still helping me?" "Yeah," he said. "You saved me too. You just didn't know it." They began preparing. Lyra helped Eli dig out his old supplies, hidden under the floorboards. Weapons, communication jammers, old alien tech from his service days. It wasn't much, but it was something. Eli, once a peaceful man, moved like a soldier again. The way he loaded his rifle, the way he scanned the forest. It told Lyra that this man had seen real war. He wasn't just some lonely farmer. He had been trained. He had survived. And now he was choosing to fight beside her. "Are you sure about this?" she asked. "Dead sure," Eli said. "This is my home." "They're not taking it." That night they set traps around the cabin. Silent alarms, tripwires, EMP grenades hidden under piles of leaves. Lyra worked fast, her hands steady. She was back in her element now. But this time she wasn't working alone. At dawn, the alarm rang, a soft buzz in the corner of the cabin. Lyra and Eli looked at each other without speaking. They moved into position. Through the trees, movement, shadows, figures in dark armor, scanning the woods with strange glowing visors. Lyra whispered, "They found me." Eli replied, "Let's show them what a mistake that was." They waited until the first mercenary stepped past the tripwire. Click, a flash of light, a sharp sound, and the first attacker went down, stunned by the EMP. Others moved fast, taking cover, but Lyra and Eli were faster. She moved like wind through the trees, taking out two silently with hand-to-hand combat. Eli fired from cover, pinning the others down with sharp, accurate shots. The forest became a battleground, but it was their battleground. Lyra felt something new as she fought, not just survival, but purpose. She wasn't just killing to live anymore. She was protecting something. Someone, Eli, the man who gave her a second chance, and she would not let anyone take that away. The forest was alive with tension. Every crack of a twig or rustle of leaves set Lyra's nerves on edge. She could feel the presence of her pursuers closing in, like a storm about to break. The peace she had begun to taste was slipping away fast. Eli moved quietly beside her, alert and steady. His eyes scanned the dark woods ahead, his breath slow and controlled. Though years had passed since his military days, his instincts were sharp. This was no ordinary fight. These were hunters trained to track and kill, and they would not stop until Lyra was caught. Suddenly, a figure appeared from the shadows, stepping carefully between the trees. A mercenary, wearing sleek black armor with glowing red markings. He moved with confidence, but that confidence vanished when Lyra appeared from her hiding spot, her movements fluid and deadly. Without hesitation, she struck. A swift punch to the side of his head sent him crashing into a tree. Before he could recover, Eli was at his back, cuffing him tightly. The mercenary struggled, but Eli's grip was firm. "We need answers," Eli said quietly. The man glared at them, refusing to speak. Lyra's eyes narrowed. "Who sent you? Why Earth?" The mercenary spat at the ground.
"Vorak, he wants you dead."
"And he's coming with everything he has." Lyra's heart tightened. Vorak. The name was enough to make her blood run cold. A hunter like no other, ruthless and smart. The last person she wanted to face. Eli nodded. "Then we don't have much time." Back at the cabin, they worked quickly. Eli checked their weapons and ammunition, while Lyra studied maps and star charts spread across the table. The black ship that hovered near Earth was more than just a threat. It was a warning. Vorak wasn't coming alone. He was sending an army. The silence between them was heavy. Neither wanted to admit how dangerous this was. But Eli broke the tension. "We fight smart. We use the land to our advantage. No open battles." Lyra looked at him, respect growing in her eyes. He wasn't just a medic or a recluse anymore. He was a leader. Someone who believed in the fight and in her. "We have to get to the ship before they land," Lyra said. "If Vorak controls the landing site, Earth is lost." Eli agreed. "Then we make a plan to stop him. No matter what." Under the cover of darkness, they moved through the forest. Lyra's steps were silent, her senses sharp. Eli followed closely, carrying a small pack of supplies and weapons. The two made an unlikely team, one a killer by training, the other a healer turned fighter. But they shared a common goal: survival. The path was rough, filled with fallen trees and thick underbrush. But Eli's knowledge of the land guided them, while Lyra's quick reflexes kept them safe from hidden dangers. The night was cold, but their determination burned brighter than any fire. Suddenly, a loud hum filled the air. The ship's engines were powering up. Vorak was preparing to strike. They reached a high ridge overlooking the landing zone. From there, they could see the massive ship, a black giant resting against the stars. Mercenaries swarmed below, setting up weapons and scanning the forest for signs of movement. Eli crouched beside Lyra, whispering, "We need to disable their communication. Cut them off." Lyra nodded, pulling a small device from her belt. "I'll take the main control panel inside the ship. You cover me." Eli didn't hesitate. "Be careful." Lyra moved like a shadow slipping through enemy lines. Her body was still healing, but her mind was sharp and focused. She knew every step could be her last. But she was ready to face it. Inside the ship, the air was cold and sterile. Lights blinked on control panels and the hum of machinery filled the halls. Lyra crept through corridors, avoiding patrols with ease. This was her world, the place she had once called home. She found the control room and quickly set to work. Her fingers danced over buttons and screens, hacking into the ship's systems. The communication networks blinked and then went dark. Outside, the mercenaries lost contact with their base. Confusion spread like wildfire. Without orders, they hesitated. Eli waited near the ridge, watching the mercenaries scramble. Suddenly, alarms blared from the ship. Lyra's signal flickered in his comm. "I'm in." "But they're coming for me," he gritted his teeth. "Hold on." "I'm coming." He raced through the forest, heart pounding. Ahead, he heard the sound of footsteps, heavy, fast. Vorak himself appeared, tall and menacing, his silver armor gleaming in the moonlight. "You can't hide forever, Lyra," Vorak said with a cold smile. "Come with me, and I promise your pain will end." Lyra stepped out, standing between Vorak and Eli. "I'm not going anywhere with you." Vorak laughed. "You never did know when to quit." The battle began. Eli watched as Lyra fought with fierce grace. She moved like a storm, striking fast and hard. Vorak was strong, but she was smarter. Every attack was met with a counter. The fight was deadly, but it was clear that Lyra was fighting not just for herself but for something bigger, her chance at a new life. Eli joined the fight, firing his rifle with steady hands. He aimed to distract Vorak, giving Lyra the opening she needed. Together they pushed Vorak back, but he was not defeated yet. With a roar, Vorak charged and Eli barely dodged the strike aimed at him. The mercenary's strength was overwhelming. Lyra saw the danger and leapt to protect Eli, taking the brunt of Vorak's blow. Pain exploded in her side, but she kept fighting. Finally, Lyra found an opening. With a quick move, she disarmed Vorak and held a blade to his throat. "Leave Earth," she said, voice cold and steady, "or this fight isn't over." Vorak looked at her, respect and anger mixing in his eyes. Then without another word, he vanished into the shadows, retreating to his ship. Eli rushed to Lyra's side. She was breathing hard but alive. "We did it," he said, smiling. Lyra nodded, pain fading into relief. For the first time in a long time, she believed she could win. Together, they watched the stars as the ship disappeared into the darkness. Earth was safe. For now. The morning sun filtered softly through the trees, casting long shadows over the forest floor. Lyra lay on the old couch in Eli's cabin, her side still aching from the fight with Vorak. The wound throbbed, a sharp reminder of how close death had come. But for the first time, Lyra felt something else, a flicker of hope. Eli was busy outside, chopping wood with steady, practiced strokes. He glanced inside and caught her looking at him. He smiled, a small, honest smile, and nodded. No words were needed. They had survived together. Lyra pushed herself up slowly. "We can't wait here," she said quietly. "They'll come back. Vorak won't give up." Eli stopped chopping and leaned on his axe. "Then we prepare. We make this place stronger. We need allies." "Who?" Lyra asked. "There's no one else out here." Eli shook his head. "Maybe, but not far. There are others like me, people who left the wars behind. People who want peace but know how to fight when they have to." Lyra studied him. There was truth in his words, but it sounded almost too hopeful. Still, she decided she had nothing to lose. That afternoon, Eli packed a small bag with supplies, a few weapons, and a satellite communicator. "I'm going to find them," he said. "If there's anyone who can help, it's time." Lyra wanted to stop him, but she knew he was right. The forest was no place for a final battle. They needed more people, more strength. "Be careful," she warned. Eli nodded and disappeared into the woods, moving like a ghost between the trees. Hours passed. The sun began to set and Lyra grew restless. She sat by the window, watching the forest edge, waiting for Eli's return. Suddenly, a soft beep came from the communicator Eli had left on the table. Lyra picked it up, her heart pounding. "Lyra, it's me." Eli's voice crackled through the device. "I found them. A small group of former soldiers and peacekeepers. They live quietly on the next continent. They're willing to help." Relief flooded through her. "How soon can they get here?" "Tomorrow night," Eli replied. "I'm on my way back now." Lyra smiled for the first time in weeks. Maybe this was the new life she needed. The next day, the forest was quiet but charged with anticipation. Lyra prepared the cabin, setting up defenses and checking weapons. She moved with purpose, no longer the hunted assassin, but a woman ready to fight for a new future. Eli returned just as the sun dipped below the horizon. He was tired but smiling. "They're coming," he said, "and they're bringing hope." Together they waited through the night. Around midnight, headlights appeared in the distance. A small convoy of rugged vehicles rolled quietly through the trees, their occupants alert and armed but calm. From the first vehicle stepped a tall woman with short-cropped hair and a determined look. She moved confidently toward the cabin, her eyes sharp but kind. "I'm Captain Mara," she said, extending her hand to Eli and then to Lyra. "We've heard about you. We want to help." Lyra shook her hand, feeling an unfamiliar strength in the gesture. These were not strangers, they were allies. People who understood loss, danger, and the fight for survival. Inside the cabin, the group gathered around the table. Maps were spread out, plans discussed in low voices. Mara was a natural leader, focused and steady. "We need to stop Vorak," she said. "But more than that, we need to protect this planet. If he returns with reinforcements, Earth won't stand a chance." Lyra listened carefully, her mind racing. This was bigger than her now. This was about something worth fighting for. Over the next days, the new team worked to strengthen the defenses. Sensors were placed deep in the forest. Communication networks were secured. Patrols were organized to watch the perimeter. Lyra trained alongside them, teaching them what she knew about the Syndicate's tactics and weapons. The group grew closer, bound by shared purpose and respect. Eli and Mara worked to build alliances with nearby communities, preparing for what might come. One evening, as they sat by the fire, Eli looked at Lyra. "You've changed," he said softly. "You're not just a survivor anymore. You're a leader." Lyra smiled, feeling the weight of those words. "Maybe, but I couldn't have done it without you." Eli shook his head. "We did it together." Outside, the stars shone bright and endless. For the first time in a long time, Lyra dared to believe in the future. But in the silence of space, far from Earth, a shadow moved. Vorak's ship returned, larger and more powerful. His eyes burned with fury and determination. He would not fail again, and the fight for Earth was only just beginning. The forest was quiet, but the calm was only a mask. Deep beneath the trees, the new allies prepared for the battle ahead. Every sound, every movement was watched closely. Eli, Lyra, and Captain Mara had built something strong, something worth defending. But they all knew the danger was far from over. The night sky was clear, stars shining cold and distant. Yet far above Earth, the black ship returned. It drifted slowly, like a predator circling its prey. Inside, Vorak sat in the captain's chair, his face tight with anger. His first attempt had failed, but he was ready to strike again, harder and smarter. He called his crew to attention. "Prepare to land," he ordered. This time, no mistakes. Back on Earth, Lyra stood at the edge of the forest, her eyes scanning the horizon. She felt the weight of the coming battle settle on her shoulders. The forest was her home now, and she would fight to protect. Eli approached quietly, carrying his old rifle. "They're coming," he said. "Soon?" Lyra nodded. "We've trained for this." Captain Mara joined them, her expression serious but steady. "We have the advantage here," she said. "The forest knows us. We know how to fight in it." But even as she spoke, a part of her worried. Vorak was not just a soldier. He was a hunter who never gave up. As the first light of dawn touched the trees, the ground began to shake. The landing craft broke through the atmosphere, crashing into a clearing not far from the cabin. Soldiers poured out, armored, armed, and ready. Lyra and the team moved quickly. Scouts slipped into the trees, sending back signals to the group. The forest became a maze of hidden traps and silent alarms. Lyra's heart pounded as she watched the soldiers advance. She felt the old instincts stirring inside her, the assassin, the fighter. But this time she was not alone. Eli fired a warning shot and the battle began. Gunfire echoed through the forest. Bullets tore through leaves and bark, but the defenders used the trees for cover. They moved like shadows, striking from unexpected angles. The soldiers were strong and trained, but the team had the home advantage. Lyra ran through the underbrush, taking down enemies with precision. Her wounds still throbbed, but adrenaline pushed the pain aside. She fought not just for survival, but for something new, a chance to live free. Beside her, Eli covered her back, his calm voice guiding the team. Captain Mara directed reinforcements, keeping everyone focused and coordinated. The fight was fierce, but the defenders held their ground. Deep in the forest, Vorak moved with deadly purpose. He ignored his soldiers, searching for Lyra. He knew if he could take her out, the rest would fall. They met in a small clearing surrounded by tall trees. Vorak's silver armor gleamed in the sunlight as he advanced. Lyra faced him, her breath steady. "This ends here," she said. Vorak smiled coldly. "It ends when I say." The battle was fierce and brutal. Vorak was stronger, but Lyra was faster and smarter. Every move she made was calculated. She dodged his attacks and struck when he faltered. The fight pushed them both to their limits. But in the end, Lyra's determination was stronger. With one final strike, she knocked Vorak's weapon away and held her blade to his throat. "Leave Earth," she warned, "and never return." Vorak's eyes burned with fury, but he knew he was beaten. With a silent promise, he disappeared into the shadows, retreating once again. The battle was over, but the cost was clear. The forest was scarred and many were injured. Eli helped tend to the wounded while Captain Mara organized the cleanup. Lyra stood quietly, thinking about what had happened. She was no longer the hunted assassin, but a protector, a leader. Eli joined her. "You saved us," he said softly. "All of us," Lyra shook her head. "We saved each other." Outside, the sun set, painting the sky with colors of hope. The fight had been hard, but the future was theirs to shape. In the days that followed, the team worked to rebuild. They strengthened defenses and reached out to others who might stand with them. The small group grew stronger, bound by trust and shared purpose. Lyra trained the new recruits, teaching them how to fight smart and survive. She was changing, not just inside but out. Her wounds healed and her spirit grew. One evening, Eli and Lyra stood by the lake, watching the stars. "You've given me a new life," Lyra said quietly. Eli smiled. "No, you gave yourself one." They both knew the galaxy was vast and dangerous. But for now, Earth was home, a place where hope could grow. Far above the planet, a new signal blinked on a distant ship's console. It was a warning. Vorak was not done. The galaxy's most wanted assassin had found a new life on Earth, and some would stop at nothing to take it away. But Lyra was ready. And this time, she would not run. The stars above the forest shone cold and steady, but the calm felt fragile. Lyra stood at the edge of the clearing, watching the sky. The fight with Vorak had changed everything. She was no longer just a hunted assassin, but a protector of something bigger, Earth and the people who had chosen to stand with her. Beside her, Eli tightened the straps on his pack. The air was cool and fresh, but there was tension beneath the surface. The group had grown stronger, but the galaxy was vast and full of dangers they had only just begun to understand. Captain Mara gathered the team around the fire. "This isn't just about us anymore," she said. "Vorak's enemies will come. They will not stop. We need to be ready," Lyra nodded. She felt the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. The new life she had fought for was fragile, and it needed protection. The days passed in a blur of training and preparation. Lyra spent hours teaching the recruits how to move silently through the forest, how to trust their instincts, and how to fight with intelligence instead of just force. Eli worked on building new defenses using his knowledge of old technologies and new ideas. At night, Lyra sometimes stared at the stars, wondering what lay beyond. She thought about her past, the years spent running, fighting, hiding. But now there was something different inside her, a hope that maybe, just maybe, she could live without fear. One evening, Eli joined her by the lake. "You've come a long way," he said softly. Lyra smiled. "So have you." They sat in silence, the water reflecting the light of distant stars. For the first time, Lyra felt something she had never known, a quiet peace. But the peace was not meant to last. One night, the warning alarms blared through the forest. The sensors Eli had set up detected something moving fast, too fast for any normal animal. Lyra grabbed her rifle and sprinted toward the sound, Eli close behind. They arrived at the edge of the clearing just in time to see ships descending from the sky, sleek, black, and deadly. Vorak had returned, but he was not alone. Behind him came others, mercenaries, bounty hunters, and enemies from across the galaxy. They had come to finish what they had started. The battle that followed was fierce and chaotic. The forest shook with the sound of gunfire and explosions. Lyra fought with the strength of someone who had everything to lose. She moved through the trees like a shadow, taking down enemies with precision and courage. Eli and Captain Mara led the defenders, keeping the team organized and focused. The recruits fought bravely, inspired by Lyra's determination. Despite the odds, they held their ground. But Vorak was relentless. He searched for Lyra through the chaos, determined to end her life once and for all. They met again in the heart of the forest. Vorak's eyes burned with anger, but Lyra's were steady and calm. "This ends now," Lyra said, her voice strong. Vorak laughed. "You think you can stop me? You are nothing without your friends." Lyra shook her head. "I am more than that. I am what I choose to be." The fight was brutal. They moved with speed and skill, each strike testing their limits. But this time Lyra was not fighting alone. Her friends were fighting with her, giving her strength and hope. With a final powerful move, Lyra disarmed Vorak and held her blade at his throat. "Leave Earth," she said, "and never return." Vorak looked at her, respect mixed with defeat in his eyes. Then with a silent nod, he vanished into the night, defeated but not broken. The battle was over. The forest was quiet once more. Lyra and her team had won, but they knew this peace was only the beginning. Eli approached Lyra, smiling tired but proud. "You did it," he said. Lyra smiled back. "We did it." Together they looked at the stars, knowing the galaxy was vast and full of challenges. But for the first time they felt ready. Lyra had found a new life, not as a hunted assassin but as a protector, a leader, and a friend, and whatever came next, she would face it head on.